known benefits of the previous nights, he would have never accepted to have his body smeared with that strange fat, greasy mixture, although the thin fabric of the neoprene suit protected him from the direct contact with the skin. Alfredo did not like being braided in this lubricant. Maybe it was Ruzzati's delicate fashion used to spread it that made him nervous.
Tonino had already removed the topsoil from the entrance hall. Around Alfredo's waist is fast the elastic belt linked to the head of the long rubber tube. On the left side, a case with few tools was hanging light a Cole's holster.
Alfredo wore the mask that covered his mouth and nose. He had to breathe in a dozen times before getting acquainted with gasping through the fabric.
He was hot.
He made his glasses adhere to his cheeks. Through the lenses, looked at Tonino and Ruzzati's faces. They were smiling at him. He caught a grimace that let on to their apprehension.
He lay down and started to go ahead along the deck, inching forward with his elbows. In the first meters, the night light, long shadow, preceded him along the gut excavated in the arid belly of desolated soil.
A few push on his forearms made the shadow flows out in an indistinguished, compact darkness. Alfredo closed and opened his eyes without managing to see the shades of black where he was immersed.
He turned the lamp on and saw only a dusty fog.
He moved the face close to the rear window and slightly moved the jaws to correct the image reflected on it. He got out of the car, wrapped in the early morning heat. Gabriele Moretti went through the mobile ramp towards the terminal. He saw her sitting by the front desk while talking to an elderly lady. "Good morning, doctor. I am here."
Mrs. De Parolis turned her head, showing a residue of hilarity on her face that faded away, and she saw Moretti. "Fonseca will come to pick up this evening, and you will reach the counter-sabotage team. Here is the report, with the details of what pertains to your responsibility."
Moretti waited a few seconds, but Dr. De Parolis turned her head away and continued the previous conversation, ignoring him. That round face and that robust body, dressed with ordinary clothes, belonged to the president of Peter Water Fund, the most important European investment fund in the water treatment sector.
Mrs. De Parolis had understood before others that, due to the present climatic changes, speculation will have involved the water sector, creating conflicts and influences market in radical ways.
The greasy layer catalyzed the lamp of dust, and it could advance with less friction.
Dust. Alfredo hated it. It lashed the environment, making scorching summer seasons even more intolerable. The consequences of water shortage had expanded also to the air quality. He had never gotten used to cohabiting in that opaque veil that covered the whole city.
23 minutes had passed. He planted his elbows and pushed with strength his feet into the ground. He heard his heart beating louder, yet implemented the rhythm to fight his tired, heavy muscles.
Tonino and Ruzzati were looking at the thin transparent tube while it was being eaten up by the oil. that strange mouth seemed sucking it up like spaghetti.
The tube was 2 more meters away from the spot where Alfredo had to insert it.
Suddenly came a definitive and quick suction of the tube inside the creator, as if spaghetti had freed themselves from an amatriciana.
Here we are. Gabriele Moretti arranged the tools one by one in his bag. Welding powders, vulcanizing adhesives, a laser, and the wedges to plug the leaks.
He opened the trunk of Fonseca's sedan, laid down the equipment and took refuge in the back seat, away from the unbearable heat.
They reached a checkpoint highlighted by 5 brick walls used to curb the frequent fires of suburban areas.
From the city center to the suburbs, this protection belts increased together with the urban decline. Green areas shaded away living room only to degrading apartment buildings. Electricity and water dosing was supplied on the basis ratio, rights established by the local administrations.
There were a minimum allowance on which people had to build their own existence.
Those who consumed them in 3 or 4 air conditioning hours did not have any other energy during the course of the day.
It is true that one could resort to additional kilowatt batteries sold at extortionist prices by private companies or on the black market like a drug fix.
The car tinted glasses screened the light as well as his state of mind. Luckily, at the time in the afternoon, he could examine himself from the workers' procession coming from the industrial areas. Darkness who allowed them to return to their hives where they lived, saving them from collapsing due to the excessive heat.
Alfredo's fingers reached the rough surface of the duct. The cone of light lit the black tube where the water was running. He had studied in detail the characteristic of that hydraulic system, diameter, flow, and maximum pressure. The exasperated attention to fitters allowed him to curb the fear of being discovered by the counter-sabotage squads.
From the case, he pulled out a tool and started to erode the plastic mass.
Polyester chips were spitting out by the tool like a pistol's shell casings. A few were hitting Alfredo's hands, giving him burning stings, and the fumes produced by the overheated plastic made his breathing difficult.
He could not last much longer.
He blew on the hole to clean it and continued making holes with a decisive determination. The tip of the tube tore the last membrane and drowned inside the duct.
Tonino, at the other end of the pipe, was sitting, waiting, looking at the group of buildings a few meters away. Appearing from their silhouettes were tiny flashes, blinking fireflies generated by the cigarettes of sleepless tenants.
Ruzzati had his eyes fixed on the entrance to the tunnel. Freed by the buzzing of an insect, he put his head closer to the end of the pipe. A timid hum reached his ears just before a first, irregular spout of water.
He made it! Tonino, he made it!
2, then 3 spouts of liquid poured from the nozzle turned downward to have the speeding up. But the water flow ceased.
They tried to calm down and stood motionless in silence, worried that their joy might have intimidated that flow.
Yet the squirt resumed. This is even clear, with less and less interruptions, until it became a subtle but constant gushing. To them, it seemed the cloud burst of a thunderous waterfall. Moretti was taken to a room where he met the operational team. Colonel Petrini was waving his hands about as if he was directing an invisible sheet of music. He was drawing in the air colorful lines on a transparent screen while highlighting with fluorescent circles part of a territory on an electronic map. On his neck, he had a piece of reddish skin, scarred by a burn.
These are the areas where we have identified the presumed sabotages. The red ones indicate the sectors where the pipes have registered flow rate leaks.
It pointed his index finger on the left corner of the screen, expanding the selected territory.
We leave tonight. We will face respectively all these objectives. Before cutting away abuse deviations from the pipes of our company, we will block the water flow. At the point you will have to sit and wait. I want to capture all those bastards responsible for these sabotages.
Colonel Petrini and Moretti sat at a bar. But couldn't you call for the police intervention?
Moretti, the police do not want to get their hands dirty with peasants who steal water from billionaire companies. The public opinion would explode if the state intervened against these people. This type of work is better left to us.
I saw that the objectives are concentrated in the Romagna area.
Yes, it's true. Here are the pipes built by the river Po banks. The water of the sea has increased half meter in the last 40 years, Moretti, while the river has nearly halved its capacity. You are young, but when I was a child, I used to spend my holidays on that coast.
Petrini leaned backward, his back against the bar, his figure stretched out in a precarious balance.
From Ravenna to Cattolica, the beach used to stretch for miles, and there were plenty of tourist complexes. The countryside irrigated by the Po made the region fertile and rich in cultivations. But when salty water from the sea took over, irrigation became impossible. As the years went by, everything turned into this desert. However, from Arte Parolis, where there is a desert, there is a business.
Alfredo was giving in. The slanting stretch where he was walking backwards had become a hard hill. He was regressing while contracting his abdominal muscles, a strange earthworm having to hunch over in the middle of his body and backing off to stretch out. In that unnatural fashion, hardly earning a centimeter, he managed to free himself from the earth grip. As he perceived the reverberation of a thin blow, he ripped off his mask and put a few more time and collapsed. The modest gush of water was sufficient to help Alfredo recover. Tonino was transforming Alfredo's faces into a grotesque mask because he was lining his face with the water.
Alfredo, you're great, you're great. Ruzzati was jumping around like a shaman with a fetish.
Stop it. Let me stand up. Come on. We need to be fast.
Quickly, the pickup was lying around and reached the carcass of an all-forgotten tractor. It looked like the skeleton of an animal left entangled in a far-gone era. Time had consumed the degradable materials, leaving a bleak representation made of a rusty iron.
Tonino followed the metallic profile of the back wheel with a tube. He had it pass under the seat and reach the tank. Alfredo opened it in the spot where the iron had been cut. He took the tube and put it in 12-liter container. Now, open the valve again. For today, we are done. Tomorrow night, it will be full. It was 23:30. Two men blended in with the soil, pressed in the grove depth in the ground. Other three were hiding behind the debris of an old ruin. The men on the ground were listening to the sound of their breathing, amplified in silence.
Moretti was waiting 200 meters away.
He was feeling nervous.
The day had become longer and more tiresome.
This was the 7th intervention, and he was starting to feel a strange uneasiness,
a concern.
He wanted to go back home.
He was specialized in tube reparation for more than 20 years, and he did not want to know what had been happening before his intervention. But the wall of indifference he was protecting himself with had become each time more fragile.
He thought of Mrs. De Parolis and what Colonel Petrini had told about her.
Her father, a famous climatologist, had dedicated his life to publishing on the risk the planet was undergoing. Umberto De Parolis, a pragmatic man not spoiled by system ideologies, had foreseen what it would have happened. But politics and the administrator of his country had done nothing.
Ruzzati's grandfather's cottage looked out onto the State Highway 495 between Porto Maggiore and Ostellato. Tonino and Alfredo had been waiting for over 30 minutes.
Inside the shed, all of the farming tools were still there. The country heritage of his ancestors went back many generations, and Ruzzati suffered having had to abandon the farm. From 2035 to 2040, a series of extreme climatic events had nullified his several attempts to cultivate that soil. Quick and impetuous rains had been flooding fields in springtime and scorching summer seasons had been burning the crops before reaching harvest. Rivers, brackish waters, and a fire in June 2041 completely gnawed down what was left on the Po Delta Park.
While they were waiting, Tonino had placed the bottles for refilling in his backpack. It had been 2 weeks since they had left from the cottage, reaching the tractor's carcass in the middle of the night and decanting the content from the tank to 6 2-liter bottles. They had gone back home to their families with 4 liters each. Basically, they were doubling the ratio allowed by the local council.
Tonino, come on, let's go. We cannot stay here waiting till dawn. We will leave his bottle here in the barn. I'm sure it didn't wake up.
Alfredo did not wait further, picked up his bag and got on his bike.
From the cottage, the road made it to the place where water was collected, meandering along the bank with a large ditch, used once to drain the Po excessive spills.
Alfredo, do you know what happened this morning?
Tonino accelerated his pedaling to catch up with his friend.
It bloomed. My daughter's flower bloomed.
Alfredo interrupted the rhythm of the pedals to let Tonino come close.
Yes, Adele was saving up a little water for the seed of a daisy she's got at school.
Alfredo cracked a smile.
At night, when I go back home without telling her, I water the vase. And this morning, Alfredo, the flower bloomed. You should have seen her face.
The contingent stick-out was completed by a couple of men 100 meters away. All of them, including Moretti, were connected through headphones. They wore infrared goggles to allow them to see anything moving in darkness.
Alfredo and Tonino reached the first of the 3 bands that anticipated the arrival of the abandoned tractor. In the silence of the night, they could feel the tires' friction on the dust covering the hard asphalt. As they came out of the last turn, they stopped pedaling and let themselves be carried away by inertia. They left the bicycles inside the ditch and silently started to heat their tank.
Attention! Here we are. Gabriele heard the words fading away before losing contact. The two men on the ground saw them passing by no more than 15 meters away. From the room where they were laying, they could check without being seen. So they were ready to blindside them. The other three waited a few seconds before having them at gunpoint. The team captain decided to wait until they had reached the water tube. He wanted to hit them right when they were going to start to quench their thirst. It would have hurt them harder.
Alfredo and Tonino were shocked. The tank inside the old tractor was empty and not a single drop was coming out of the tube. Instinctively, they ducked down to protect themselves from an inexplicable threat. Strange noise made them jump ahead towards protection behind what was left of the old engine.
From the helmet's beam of light, switch on simultaneously, projecting a sequence of blinding circles. They look like ovals of a bizarre theater choreography. The oblivious actors remained paralyzed by the light explosion. They were stopped before being able to think of a reaction.
Of the four saboteurs, only one woman had reached the tank by slipping away from the grab of one of Petrini's mercenaries. She started to scream very loud.
The scream alarmed Moretti. He left his hiding place and started to run, handed by the toolcase. The airy terrain was failing under his feet just as they could not avoid bigger cracks. He arrived at the light spot and saw her being dragged with force by the military.
She was holding both hands glued onto the plastic container, and she kept pouring water on her mouth in spite of the fact that she was being forcefully taken to the car that was seizing them all. One of the men slapped her face so violently that her lip ripped. "What are you doing? Are you dragging that woman this way? She was only drinking."
Moretti, what you doing here? Do you know that you have to wait for a signal?
The young man placed himself right in front and covered its view. The moving lights were escaping the screen of his body and were creating a bright halo around his profile.
You think of repairing leaks, and we think of our job.
That man could have been as old as his kid.
Do not get upset, Moretti. These bastards resell the water on the black market. They take advantage of the most needy people and make money on the skin of the poor, believe me.
He looked at the woman while she was taken away, thirsty and wounded. To Moretti, she simply looked like a desperate person.
Hey! What you doing? It's me!
Ruzzati's profile became recognizable as he was approaching.
I arrived at the cottage early, so I wanted to make a joke. I have already emptied the tank. Here is your bottles.
Alfredo and Tonino gave him some pat on the head, annoyed and relieved. Ruzzati sat on the ground. He settled his back against the tractor's chassis, straightened the legs, and placed the bottles of water beside each other.
Sit down for a second. We are not in a hurry, are we?
The two friends stood Sibada and Jean. They looked surprised.
Come on, let's toast, guys. We deserve a little shot. Don't you think? We have been here a month to dig this hole.
Alfredo bent his knees, looked at Ruzzati in the face, and in the dark he recognized his startled look. He let himself go on the ground, and he collected his invitation, extending his hand. Ruzzati opened the bottle and brought it to his mouth. Nervously, he gulped down for a few seconds, then he passed it on to Alfredo.
Ah, guys, this is disgusting.
Alfredo drank more slowly before passing it to Tonino, that though it was not so bad, so fresh in that sweltering heat.
How disgusting is this life, friends? We are water bottle thieves. Do you realize it? We do not even have the right to have basic things. We have to steal them.
They stood in silence. To all of them it appeared for a very long time. Then Alfredo picked up the bottle again.
Let's have another round, come on. And you, Tonino, tell him about Adele's Daisy.
We face a double challenge.
Good, Moretti. You did a great job. Managing to repair those leaks in such a little time is really a professional job.
Colonel Petrini was scrutinizing from the helicopter's window the territory parading before his eyes. Moretti was looking on the opposite side, scarce water of the big river Po running through an overblown riverbed. The Po's that measured its depth were now distant from the water run. They were standing alone amid the terrain, half-painted in white varnish, faded and useless.
Also, Mrs. De Parolis is satisfied. She has already made a money transfer to your account.
Moretti turned his head. The mouth looked as if it was pulled by an elastic band. He retracted with precision the discomfort he was feeling glued onto himself. He would have liked to ask him about a burn on his neck, but he preferred receiving an answer to another of his curiosities. How did she manage to become the proprietor of all these companies if her father was an activist climatologist?
When Umberto De Parolis understood that all of his publishing we have never brought any concrete result, he reacted by flipping his objectives. He started to buy share of the companies that would have become central in this forecast and waited for his prediction to come true. Next, the daughter, with a great flair for business and a discreet amount of cynicism, reached the control of the most important firms. Actually, she can easily influence the political power by deciding to close some of her precious taps. The quota of futures and derivatives would fly sky high. Moretti, look down there. You see the green strip of land down there, close to the carcass of that rusty tractor.
Yes, I see it.
How can there be a single strip of vegetation amid this arid field?
Moretti understood straight away. That splash of grass, so rare and localized, must have sprouted because of some leaks from an underground pipe. It was sufficient for a connection to be ill-jointed to create a sequence of drops and moisture that in a few weeks would have enabled some green species to claim its existence. He looked forlorn at Colonel Petrini, who was already on the phone with his operational team. His return home would have waited yet another night.
Che la vita è sempre più una sporca guerra, che non si può cambiare, né più respirare, che è normale vedersi ogni giorno appassire, che ti devi adeguare, che non puoi capire, che tutto quanto è deciso non si può cambiare, che non c'è spazio per il libero pensiero, che segui la massa, muori uomo solo, ma se basterà un po' di acqua e di sole per far crescere Margherita di Adele. E se chiudendo gli occhi tu puoi immaginare, allora aprili perché lo puoi anche fare. Mi hanno detto che non c'è più una via d'uscita, che l'età dell'innocenza ora è mai finita, che non ci sono diritti a fronte dei doveri, che non contano gli esteri, contano gli averi, che la libertà è sempre stata menzogna, che l'opportunità non fa l'uomo carogna, che non è importante farsi un'opinione, che la cultura è superflua condizione. Ma se basterà un po' di acqua e di sole per far crescere la Margherita di Adele. E se chiudendo gli occhi tu lo puoi immaginare, allora aprili perché lo puoi anche fare. Sono un temporale, sono un animale, sono quel che passa fra l'istinto e il cuore, io sono l'eccezione, la determinazione, io sono il petalo nella Margherita di Adele, io sono convinzione, io sono l'attuazione, io sono la pazzia dentro casa tua, io sono l'eccezione, la determinazione, io sono quel che vive in piena mutazione. Sono convinzione, sono la creazione, sono il sogno vivo che non può morire. Sono l'incoerenza, sono resilienza, sono l'acqua santa, sopra l'astinenza. Sono l'erezione, sono luce e sole, sono l'innocenza delle tue parole, sono la speranza che non muore, la margherita di Adele.